My name is Markéta Filipenská and I will be host of this panel discussion. The panel discussion will be mainly about the topic of transition of research and innovations into business and turning it into successful businesses. So today in this panel discussion I will invite on the stage 3 people who made it from academia to business. So round of applause for first speaker, Kaija Pöysti. From Finland, she's a serial entrepreneur, also angel investor and coach and mentor for startups. Kaija, welcome. And Kaija actually was the first female entrepreneur. She founded her spin-off company from Helsinki University of Technology in 1983. So she's very experienced and spin-off founder and female founder. So she combines many roles.
Hands up those who were born before 1983. Yay! I get some, because normally when I coach...
Please use the microphone, but I guess everyone can hear.
Yeah, I have a very loud voice. Normally when I love working with young people and students and so on, and normally when I ask that question, no hands go up anymore.
Kaija, great. You will be given the floor later. However, please welcome also the second speaker. Kaija will be joined by Petr Přidal, CEO of Maptiler company. Petr has PhD in cartography and geodesy, and he actually used his knowledge from university and created startup Maptiler, which brings innovation to maps. So thank you for coming, Petr, and he will share his insight from being entrepreneur in Switzerland. So you will bring also some knowledge from abroad and inspiration from abroad. And last but not least, we will be joined by Dobrovolná, professor at Masaryk University. Julia has background in physiology and pathophysiology of stress, and she's also founder of a spin-off company called Entrant. So, welcome. And the first question, I will start with you, Kaija. So, you were the first female entrepreneur from Helsinki University. So how it is to be a pioneer?
Yes, well, it was interesting. Like I said, I started studying in 1978, physics and mathematics. And first of all, I do want to say, wonderful to be here. Thank you for having me. And for all of you, do appreciate the fact that there are events like this. They are difficult to organize and they take a lot of energy and so on. In 1983, they didn't exist. Why did I become an entrepreneur? 2 main things. First of all, I do have a family business background. Totally, family was in textile business, not in technology. But it had shown to me what business is like. When I was 17, I was saying, okay, I will never become an entrepreneur, never, ever, ever, ever. I will be a researcher. And then I decided when I was studying, there were things happening and I realized that I really would like to work for large companies and have them as customers. But I wouldn't want to work in a large company, which was then typical that studied technology went into a large company, because I thought that there are some ideas I would like to try, and they were a bit different, and I thought that getting them through in a large company is going to be really difficult, so I'll go by myself. But it was very different with a family background, even though I got no money from the family and so on, but I got the experience and had somebody to talk to. So mentoring is a really important thing. That's why I continue doing it always.
Great. And maybe could you tell us more about the first company, Trantex, you founded?
So Trantex, what we did was software localization. And this was one part, and one could say, well, it's not really research. But I think also in the previous panel, the participant said very nicely that she is a researcher. And she said, well, research is actually, very similar to business. So you think of, well, what is the problem? And then how can I solve it? So you do a hypothesis, and then you test it, and then you see how does it work. And so what Trantex did was we did software localization. Remember, this was 1983, and that was when IBM PC came to market. Software used to be in English only, and computer people had studied computing. And then we had PCs, and all of a sudden the users needed text processing or Excel or things like that, and they were not computer people. And I thought, oh, that's an interesting opening. Translators don't know anything about software, and software engineers don't know anything about Finnish language, and what they write is incredibly difficult to understand. So it was a combination. And then over the years, we did a lot of different things. We did machine translation very early on, when it was very, very different, worked together with universities on that. But then really, and I'll come back to that later, what it was all about is I am an operations research person, optimization. And for me, the whole thing, I realized this is not about translation. It is an optimization process. It is a big process and you can optimize it a lot. And nobody had done the optimization and looked at it from the optimization point of view.
Thank you for this short introduction. And the same question is to you, Petr. So you started WebTiler when you were studying in Switzerland. So what actually sparked the idea behind your company?
Yeah, our story is in fact from two boys from here, from Brno, who were leading Scout, and that extended into a company which has currently 80 people and presence in 6 countries, and which developed technology used by more than 350 million people a month, maps. And the inspiration started in a Moravian library here in Brno, when we were scanning paper maps, old historical maps, and putting them on a right location. And this bubbled over thesis of the year here into PhD in a PhD study in Prague, and then I presented at different conferences in the world. One of the presentation was in ETH Zurich, one of the best technical universities in continental Europe, and they really loved the prototype we have developed. So they said, we have this national project in Switzerland, and we are keen to have it in our project, but you have to go in front of a commission of professors at the university so that we prove that your technology is sufficient and correct. And you have to form a business in Switzerland. And so the academia basically pushed me to create a business because that's how I got the first contract back then. And that was called Klokan Technologies, the company in Switzerland. And Klokan is my nickname from Scout Boys. And it means kangaroo in Czech. So this was the beginning. And we were doing consulting, and after about 5-6 years, we really turned into kind of mapping ninjas, working for NASA and Vodafone, doing coverage maps for mobile operators and similar things. I just saw how can we upgrade this, because we are going from one contract to another, and we wanted to work on something what is meaningful for the people and change a bit the world instead of just picking a customer and developing something for them. And that's where I jumped on the Swiss ecosystem of the startup support and benefited hugely from that through different things. And this gave me a kick to turn the consulting business into a product business. And that was the moment when we grew from a flat structure with 10 people to the current autonomy in a team and scalable approach, and a real kind of sales and marketing and different department, and open the whole new world of possibilities. And it's really fun, I have to say.
It's so great to hear that even academia can push their students to start a business. Maybe, Julia, you will tell us a different story. So yes, what's your personal journey?
Exactly, that's what I wanted to say, that I'm pretty tightly tied to academia, and academia never pushed me. Anyway, still, which is, no, it's just a joke. I just wanted to say that it's great to hear such a success story, and great respect. I just wanted to pay to Petr. What I wanted to say about our company, this is a small company. It's a different story of a small local company that's been started as a university spinoff. And the basic idea behind the spinoff was actually not to go very straight to a product, but rather to enable development. Because most of the aspects of the technology development that we wanted to do were very or much easily attainable in industry than we would do in academia. It would just take decades or centuries or I don't know, very long time to do what we wanted to do. So basically that's it. The company Entrant is primarily focused on wearable technologies that are used for measurement of stress using a completely novel technology that we developed at the Masaryk University. So it's a technology based on thermodynamical modeling. So it's pretty much mathematics and physics that we just employed. And I just thought what I would say speaking about the company, but maybe I would just a bit turn into how it changed the mindset of people I'm working with in academia. It was quite interesting that we just very much observe now how having these small university spin-off changed the complete mindset of people working on a team, like to focus much more on some like product-oriented solutions, or I would say maybe basic utility of what we're doing. Like, is it useful for someone? Will someone be able to use what we're doing sometime in the future? And I think this is also a value. So this is maybe something I just wanted to mention. Yeah. Okay.
This discussion should be about translation of research into viable businesses. So what, from your point of view, is essential as a factor for successful translation from academia to business? Anyone who would like to address? You have two microphones, so you can share it.
I wasn't sure whether that's working. One thing I would point out, and it was to continue from what you said, go and talk to potential users and customers and understand that you love your research and it's great and you need to love it. But making it into business means that the businesses, the users, customers and investors are not actually interested in your research. They are interested in the benefits that your research brings to customers and then through that to investors. So we want to understand the mindset. The research is necessary and it's great, but it's not what the business is about.
Yeah, know your customer and deliver value. But the other part is the academics are keen for perfection and seeking the perfection, seeking the solutions. And I think the best approach to run the business is to consider it not that I'm launching something great, but it's an experiment. So launching a business is a scientific experiment where you have a first theory, you push it out and you collect insights. And the purpose is that you apply this insight on the next experiment and you are iterating. So don't be afraid. Do not try to seek the perfection before you start. The main thing is like done is better than perfect. And this I repeat constantly to my team and to different people. Done is better than perfect. So do it first, learn from the mistakes, repeat. And yeah, that's the advice.
I think it's a great mindset actually to normalize making mistakes or failing or something. I think it's absolutely crucial for any sort of venture like this. What I wanted to say, I think that also very important point is to really be able to perform or somehow engage in interdisciplinary collaboration. Very often what I see happens, it happened to me maybe in the past, is like these researchers turning businessmen. We have sort of expertise as researchers and this may lie in innovation or very precise methodology, whatever. But then there are a lot of things that we don't know actually as researchers, and there are other people who know. So I think this is, for me, it's a crucial point to understand where my limitations as a researcher are or lie, and where other people can join, but if they join, then I have to listen to them. And sometimes it's also like they join and it's like, oh, but I like to do it my way. And it's like, okay, but you can't do it your way. This is a stupid way to do it. And sometimes I think that this is the basic core of any interdisciplinary collaboration. If we do interdisciplinary something, then we have to listen to what people from other disciplines actually say. So for me, it's about respecting this. Yeah.
Quickly, two things. Yeah, so every time I work a lot with research-based business and invest in them or make these decisions, and every time they tell me that the investor was so stupid, they didn't understand or what we were saying, and I said, okay, you don't tell it well enough. Seriously, that's what you need to do. And another thing is that as I work a lot with EIC funding, also as a coach there, so there's still this feeling often from people from academia. They ask me, so what do I need to put in the application that I get the funding? They think like it's a test, and then, you get a 10 or you get an A+, and then when you get an A+, you get funding. And it's not like that. There are a lot of things that you have to do. So this attitude of, hey, there are a lot of other skills, exactly. And you'll have to learn like negotiate and not about, I am right and you guys are stupid if you don't understand. I know that I exaggerate, but I see that sometimes, and that's not what turns the great research into business.
I think very often the feedback from the investor on such a question would be, well, you don't need to add anything, you have to remove half.
Okay, I see many questions in the application. That's great, guys, just go on. And I picked one. So academics often don't even consider entrepreneurship. So what would you say is the best motivator for them to leave the academia and try it?
I myself was, the metric for success for me is that I'm doing something what matter in my life. And I want to help other people. And I was depressed on PhD that I was working hard, but I struggled to see the people, how they are using what I have created. And that's what I love to find the academical problems and solve them. But what I was missing in academia was this, that the people are really using it and there is a focus on it. And that was the primary driver for me to go from academia to business. Because I didn't want to work on something which ends up in a drawer. I wanted to see the people who are practically using it. And that's like, if the spark is being born in the students, then this is the best driver. You are really helping someone.
Okay, for me, definitely it's the sense of purpose, as Petr said. So doing something that matters, that someone can use. But also, thinking about that, I think it's very important to have something like visible. If you have a product, mostly it's a thing. It's something that you can show to someone. And I think that this is something that we sometimes, in academia, this is very difficult to sometimes actually explain what we're doing, like working with a lot of mathematical models on your computer. My son doesn't get actually what I'm doing. And if you have something, a product, say, okay, this is what I did, this gives you a very strong sense of purpose. So I think that this is something that we should communicate to our students, and sometimes like a real thing that you have something real and you can show it to people and you can then explain what your scientific visions behind it are, is also a great motivation for scientists. If you have something reasonable that you can use and it's based on your science, this is great. So maybe just coming back to what Petr said, actually.
Okay. I very often say that when I started as an entrepreneur, for approximately 6 years, people were asking me, well, okay, this is great, but when are you getting a real job? They also said, how can you be an entrepreneur because you studied technology and science and not commercial things? And I always said, well, to me, science is the best education to become an entrepreneur for 3 reasons. First of all, you learn to understand what Occam's razor is, and it's a really good principle. Second of all, you do understand the difference between correlation and causality, and that's a good thing to know. And third, it's better to be roughly right than exactly wrong. So especially if you study physics, you get the idea of get the ballpark right first and then go to the details. And this being, it's going back to, hey, do the things. This is the thing that you're never perfect. But I think I take a little bit different view also. A lot of the times people say, oh, you know, researchers need to be entrepreneurs. And I said, well, actually, I disagree to a point. They need to understand how business works, but very often it's much better if they get a co-founder who has more business skills so that they can focus more on the research and the development and don't have to do all the other stuff that business is about, and it's important, and it's an important skill. And the best companies, you know, Sony, I think, is the great example of a tech guy and a business guy coming together. So successful companies, and especially when I look at it from the investor point of view, I always try to look like, okay, do the researchers understand that they need other types of people as co-founders or very early on, and do they value those skills so that you don't get cliques of, we are the scientists and those guys are doing the sales, it's terrible, sales is awful. Sales is not awful, it's really, really interesting because you solve your customers' problems.
What is amazing on the business is that it's pushing you as a scientist to be able to explain what you are doing to your grandmother. So if you are able to do this zooming on what you are doing for different people and their different skill sets, so you then prepare these pitches and you sort your head the way that you can talk to different people in different levels. So if you ask me what Maptyler is doing, my business, I would say if you buy a train ticket in Switzerland, or check a weather forecast in Germany, or see an infotainment system in an airplane, you have seen our maps already. And this gives you the visual imagination. And I can also zoom into the scientific level where, yes, we are downloading the raw imagery from the satellite in a different spectrum and combining that into an endless satellite layer, endless summer satellite layer, from different channels and putting the map together into a product which people can deploy in their own products. And this is quite a different way how to speak about what you are doing, and it's in fact amazing to be pushed to do it. And that's where these dragon dance, for example, where you stay in front of investor and you are pitching and people are shooting to you for what you have not said and why it's bad. This is pushing you so much into clearing your mind and defining the goals and perfectioning the communication, and that's a very great skill.
Okay, I just wanted to say, I will say something very heretic, and this is not absolutely to oppose what you say, because I absolutely agree that it's great to have a clear mind and to be able to articulate your thoughts in front of, let's say, some audience. But at the same time, what I see in academia is that we invest quite a lot of effort in these presentation skills and pitching and whatever. And in the end, it's like the content is not there. Sometimes I would very much like really to see like these innovative thoughts that were never seen before. And it's like maybe the person can be presenting in a completely wrong way, but still there will be the thoughts. And this is something that I think that sort of hinders all the innovation and everything, that we are just training students to say, oh, you have to be very nice in how you express yourself. And they do, actually, they do. But still, you have not to lose the content. The content still has to be there. It's not about how you present, but it's also about what you say and how it matters and how the innovation will impact, I don't know, someone. And let's think about this too. So it was not absolutely, because I know the common narrative, I heard it very often. Let's be clear and let's be able to say what we do in one sentence and to agree on everything. But sometimes the very, like the innovation, it's not linear. It's not like that. The more effort you put into the ideas, then the better the ideas will be. It's very non-linear. And sometimes I think it's about also creating the environment with normalized failures and then leaving the people like doing things sometimes. It's about not controlling the process. So that's also something I think should be mentioned. If we want to have innovations from academia that go well into industry, then we have to somehow enable that. That's what I wanted to say. I'm sorry.
Which brings me to another question. Kaija and Petr, you both have experience from abroad, from Finnish startup ecosystem, Switzerland support of the university, spin-offs and startups. So what are the best practices which can inspire us in Czechia?
Talking about Finland, so we are very proud of our ecosystem, and I think we've achieved a lot. We've been working on it and learned the hard way. But I would pick up two things. There are many, but two things. First of all, a very long tradition of collaboration with the industry. So this is something that, especially the University of Technology, industries were taking the students already to work on summers and so on there. So you got to see how the industry worked. And it's very typical for the first year student already to get a job. Nowadays more difficult, but it still is there. But another thing which I think has worked a lot is that you give the students a lot of room to run things. So even though I do think that it's really important to have like innovation offices and so on and TTOs who coordinate things, have the student work. So for example, in Finland, the whole slush that we have, some of you may have heard about it, but it started from the students. We now have fund, the Wave Ventures, actually they have their third fund. The students run it. And people gave the money to the fund. They invested in the fund because they wanted the students to learn. And yeah, they've made mistakes. Exactly, you have to learn with the mistakes. So the students had a very active role all the time. And I think that is something to really bear in mind, and then bring others there and work together instead of having like somebody coordinated from the top. It's very much bottom up.
Bottom up, great. Petr, from your Switzerland perspective.
I think I can just mention three things which changed my mind as a practical experience from the support in Switzerland. It is about bringing you out of your bubble. So the first experience was that I took a part in a pitching competition with my business, and the prize was 1 week in San Francisco in front of investors. And pitching to different people. We made like 50 different pitches to different people within 1 week. So like 5 a day or more. And because we did before training, and this was so intense and so kind of this shooting into you and the critique. But if you listen and you take it. It was amazing school, amazing experience. And this was organized by and supported by the Swiss government to pick the best startups from different schools and recruited from the students typically. And then bring them there together with the local investors who learned and spent time with the startups in there, and then presenting it to the contacts. So it was kind of what are the best startups of Switzerland in a very, very early stage to the different investors in San Francisco. So that was number one. Number two was another pitching competition, which I was lucky, thanks to my team, to get a prize on. And that was EMBA students in a business school. So people who study how to run the business, but EMBA means advanced. So they were typically like 5 years in the business, in their own business, and they wanted to educate on their own. So they apply for a school in Switzerland to get further education in the business skill set. And we as a startup applied for a competition. They picked the startups, and after signing NDA, these experienced people studying the business from different industries were looking at our business and our numbers, our metrics, And they were recommending what to do to grow, how to address the pain points. And this was very targeted and from different angles and different industries and different countries as well, in fact. And this was just another kind of upgrade to your mind and listening on how things can be done. So that's number 2. Number 3 is how the grants run. So it's super easy to do a grant between business and academia, where the business proposes what needs to be done. And there is a basic 3-page form to fill for a small grant. If you want a bigger grant, you have to do the small grant first, and then you can apply with a bigger administration. And the business comes with the idea. The business has to find the researchers. And the researchers are fully paid by the government to help the business. They have, in fact, quotas to deliver on this. So they should. And they are motivated by the money, and they receive additional grant support for employing other people, like postdocs, if they do. And the business just have to do a parity in the effort. So if the researchers spend 100 days doing something for the business has to invest and prove that they invested also the 100 days into the cooperation. But the idea which they have, if the researcher approves, is then really implemented and pushing the business into praxis. So that was the number 3.
Those are very great inspirational tips. Thank you for sharing. And on the other hand, Julia, you have experience from creating spin-off company at university, so certainly you are facing some barriers. So what changes you think would make major impact?
Yeah, first of all, I think that before starting to complain, which I don't intend to do, but maybe I will slip a bit into that, so I apologize for that. I think that the situation is steadily improving. What I see over years, it's getting better. So even though there are some, let's say, fundamental, pretty big problems in the field, still it's getting better. So I would just start it on a positive note like that. What I see, it's definitely compared to, let's say, countries that are more successful, like Switzerland, for example, it's definitely a huge difference in the administration burden to the scientists. So, for example, in the Czech Republic, like the academics who invent something, let's say, they are very much burdened with the whole process of how to handle the intellectual property, whatever, a lot of forms that people from other countries that I talked to or collaborate with, they don't have to do. So definitely, that's point 1. Second, it's some sort of terra incognita field where the scientists just go outside to these like plain fields of business or industry or whatever, and they do things there. And what I very much like here, what I think is missing is this sort of guidance that Petr mentioned. So like we invent things that were invented a lot of times ago sometimes. So it's like really reinventing the wheel all time again. So it would be great if there will be like sort of support for that. Like, okay, let's do not repeat failures of other whatever. And let's look into this and listen to people who know their things, who know how to do things. So I think that this is a great way, what Peter mentioned, like really to have a structured system or system that is like, I would say, multidimensional of mentors, collaborators, people who look into the business, say, okay, this is a good idea to do, this is not a good idea to do. So that's it. And third, it's the whole mindset of academia in terms of what we want to achieve with this sort of commercialization of our intellectual property. Sometimes it's, but I don't think this is very much like local problem. I think it's a general global problem sometimes. So it's like, what's at the end of what we're doing? And maybe this goes really to what the industry can teach us somehow. What we can learn from the industry is like really sometimes simplify the things. Is it good for something? Does anyone want this solution? Is it good? Can it be, I don't know, can it be sold to someone? Is anyone interested? And I think that this is something that really also very much influences how we're doing things. So sometimes it's like having solutions that are generic and not everyone is listening or interested in it. So yeah, so this are, I would say, like the 3 major areas of possible improvement.
Kaija, you have actually also spin-off experience, so if you could follow up.
Yeah, so continue on that. One thing that I was in the board of VTT Ventures, which is our Finland Fraunhofer. So we did the seed investments, the first investment spin-offs from VTT. One of the things we had, and I think that it worked very well in the beginning, we had what is called the entrepreneur in residence. So the researchers had the idea, but they had, in a sense, they were forced to take an entrepreneur in residence. Now, this person was somebody with a lot of experience, but also had to invest in the company, not to be like a major investor, but a significant amount of money for a person. So there was really like, people were not just jumping in and saying, hey, I will be great in entrepreneur for you, because you had to put in money. So you wanted to really understand where you go. And I think that was quite a good way to do this. And it also, over a period of time, it taught the researchers to think from this point. And as I think we all agree that it is about having different skills and valuing those skills. And this is, I can't really emphasize it enough. When I lived in the States, so I lived in Boston for 8 years, and MIT had this famous, it was then 50K competition. So pitching competition, and the first prize was $50,000. As far as I know, it's now 500,000 or even more. But so the teams had to have, like they typically had 2 PhDs who both had probably 2 PhDs and really like brilliant. And then they had somebody either from Harvard or Yale or so on who did finances. And then they had somebody who focused on marketing and sales. You couldn't have a team with only scientists. And I think, again, this is something that you need to do. But definitely having, as you said, people, and you both said, people who have experience. I do think that it's really, again, from the other side, it is important that these people have an understanding of the research and the science. So what I have seen sometimes is problematic that you kind of bring in a person who has a lot of business experience, but really doesn't understand what the science is about. And that doesn't work either. So you have to have an understanding, but then you look at it from the point of view of the benefits to customer or what the investor needs to do. If you don't have any understanding, I mean, I definitely wouldn't even go to a place like that, because if you don't really get the fundamentals, then how can you then help the company? In the early stage, yeah.
My next question goes to IP. You already mentioned that's a huge question when considering translating research into business opportunities. So maybe if you could share your experience, and then you can follow up, especially Kaija, with some best practices, maybe, or in Switzerland as well.
Yeah. Like thinking about the whole process of, let's say, commercialization of the intellectual property that was developed on our team, what I was very surprised to encounter as a scientist was sometimes we got into situations that were never encountered in the past. So it's these were scenarios that should have been considered by someone, and there was a significant lack of expertise there. So it was like sometimes we were like somehow drawn into the troubleshooting of a problem that should have been troubleshot by different people, I think. So that's point one. Point two is, I think that there's a like ongoing process, or should be ongoing process, of making the administrative process of the whole commercialization of our, let's say, protection maybe of the intellectual property easier for the scientists and more comprehensible. So it should be like real easy, like there should be people looking into how do things actually helping the scientists, because otherwise it doesn't work, and the researchers won't spend a lot of time reading all the directives of European Committee on whatever. So this is also something where I think that we're losing quite a lot of people. And speaking about the intellectual property, what I very often see in these panel discussions, because I'm pretty often part of it, I'm very happy and very grateful for that, is that we very much focus on the youngest people. Like it's always like about how to how to help students. And that's great because they really need to be supported, and absolutely not opposing that. But at the same time, there are also like the more experienced researchers who can also come up with great ideas. And I think that the system sometimes forgets about them a bit. So it's like, as Kaija said at the beginning, that there are like people under certain age, and then there are other people. I very much, at this point, enjoy working with older people, with people who know how to do things. I think this is very important, so that we listen to older people, experienced people, people who went through failures, people who somehow learned how to do failures. I think this is also an important point, and especially in academia, because these people can tell you the way through it. Can you tell you how to, especially in a not very clear environment, make you be successful in the environment. So also it's not about like only like the young people, that's great, but at the same time be smart about that. Yeah.
It's great to hear that the diversity is also in terms of age, not only about
God,
sex.
thank you for saying that. You saved my life. Sometimes I feel like, oh, I'm the dinosaur. Yeah, but actually, I do like working with young people. I learn from them. And I think it is this, we need to learn to listen. Whatever we do, we need to be interested and passionate about what we do, but we need to learn to listen. And I have to say that one thing, yes, I agree also with that we sometimes put too much focus on the very young entrepreneurs, and we focus on how do you do pitching, how do you tell about, and I say, okay, learn to listen to customers, learn to listen to users, and so on. Now, there's one thing about IP I quickly want to say, and slightly controversial, and I want to kind of make you think from the investor point of view. So I do understand that the scientist says, I want to have the IP rights. But then if you do a company, and then you say, okay, the company has the IP, but I have the IP too. There's one thing that investors don't like about IP, and that's joint IP. Because why would an investor put a lot of money in the company and then say, oh, okay, but if the scientist goes away, the IP goes away too, or the scientist can use every IP. So I think that the scientists do need to understand that there is no such thing as free lunch. So if you want the investment, you can't say, well, but personally, I own all the IP. You put the money in the company, but I still own rights to the IP. But Petr, I would be interested in hearing, you've worked with, ETH and so on, and they are very experienced in this. So what are your thoughts?
Yeah, if you are going into this number 2, or 3, it was number 3, the cooperation with the academia where the business proposes. If you go for university, like ETH, they have a very good legal departments in a sense of negotiation. So if you are willing to give the IP, then the way is smooth. If you are not willing, then you have like options, which they typically do, and you always give up something. But that's what makes the technical schools, which are not universities, much more attractive for this business to academia cooperation, because they are not that strict on the IP. And if you go with university, very often the absolute minimum is that they are going to be publishing about it. But very often they want license fees in the future, or kind of share on the company, or any kind of long-term recurring payment, which is hardly justifiable either in front of your team or in front of investors. So you have to balance it as a business and kind of make the general research, which you are fine with if it's open, and it's hard to do with the university, and practical kind of product applications of the technology with the technical schools, which has not that strong requirements.
Great. I love the way you follow up each comment, and this brings me to my last question, because we are slightly running out of time, and it's an advice for future academic entrepreneurs, for students, researchers who are sitting in the room and contemplating about starting a business. So what's your advice?
So my advice is very brief, and it's find a good mentor and then listen to what the mentor says. I think this is absolutely vital. You have to find the best people who can give you advice, and if these people give you advice, then at least think about it and then incorporate it somehow.
don't be afraid to start, because your passion for discovering the solution is going to be boosted like a rocket engine if you go into business.
And don't be afraid of making mistakes, but from a personal point of view, before you start, it's good to go through like, well, what is your risk profile and what is your ability to handle risk and uncertainty? Because you are going to face it. And the fact that, yeah, there is no right answer, there's no test that you get an A+ from and then everything is smooth. It happens, things change, and there are a lot of different skills. But if you have a great idea, and especially if you know that this research I've been doing can make a difference if it goes outside the academia, then by all means, go and start thinking about building a business. And yes, talk with mentors, talk with others. My final thing is sometimes when I talk with researchers, I say, I can't tell about my idea at all because I'm going to patent it. And if I tell about it, somebody will steal it. Well, you know what? If you have a good idea and companies are not out there to steal stuff and so on. Yes, some do. Yeah, don't be naive about it. But it's not about one single idea in your research and so on. Yes, you need to be able to patent, but at the same time, if it is a great idea, there are always options for that. So don't sit there and say, I have this wonderful thing, but I can't tell about it, because that's a waste. That really is a waste.
Thank you so much for coming and sharing with us your experience, your inspiration from other ecosystems, and even to be positive and constructive and advising what Czech universities can inspire and adopt in their strategies in the technology transfer. So round of applause for our panelists, for Kaija Pöysti, Petr Přidal, and Julia Dobrovolná.